Greetings, my fellow hunters, and welcome again to my review. And today, to celebrate my 100th subscriber, I am going to be doing my first ever manga review on one of the first ever mangas I read when I was younger. Rosario+Vampire, an old 2004 manga that I actually read as my first manga. As I always say, we're going to be delving into the world of monsters and other beastly creatures that I normally would hunt, but today I'll be reviewing them. So as I always say, my hunters, let the hunt begin! So, a little bit of history with this manga. Rosario+Vampire was in 2004 manga by Akashiya Ikeda, who was basically a big fan of vampires and other monsters, so he thought of basically creating a manga where the main protagonist basically is sent to a monster school, meets up with a young vampire named Mocha Akashiya, and basically shenanigans ensue. Basically, he is the lone human in this entire school, and humans aren't allowed to be in the school, and if they're found out, well, let's just say they don't meet a happy ending. And on the way, he meets several girls. Yes, this is classed as a harem, but I wouldn't say its main focus is a harem. At the beginning, yes, but I'll get onto that in a minute. So, what Skuni has to do is try to basically survive being hounded by girls that basically want to have him, all the while trying to make sure they don't find out that he's a human, otherwise that could cause some problems because, like I said, humans aren't allowed to go into the school. All the while, as the series continues to progress in the manga, there tends to be an intrigue of undermining racism towards monsters, distrust towards humans, and the fact is that there's a secret organization that wishes to, how would I put it, undermine what the school's trying to do, which the school is trying to introduce coexistence between monsters and humans, because the headmaster, as far as we can tell, wants to do that, just because he thought that humans and monsters have been at war for so long that it's time that they unify together. And I have to say, for an early manga series, and actually one of my first, it was actually pretty good. I know I say that a lot about things I like, but hear me out. The premise is very interesting because I think this is one of the earliest mangas, because in the past there was always the case that there was one mighty guy and basically the girls just swooning over him. I think Rosario was one of those rare times where it was the opposite, where the guy was at the beginning, he's basically useless and he has his lover, Mocha Akashiya, do all the fighting, and other girls, which I will get onto very soon. But as the series progresses, he wants to learn to become better and stronger, so that way they don't have to protect him, and that he can protect them. An interesting dynamics, in my opinion. And it actually, for an early on, really broke the formula. Normal harem animes at that time, because most of the time it was just basically one powerful dude and just a lot of girls swooning over him, like I said. So yeah, I think for that reason why it really appealed to me for the longest time. It's interesting, it ditched a trope that was actually starting to become boring in the early 2000s. And, well, it was always pretty fun. In the way that the characters interact, that the love rivalry that they have, a vampire and a succubus named Kuruma, I think I pronounced her name, it was a very long time, and how she basically has to win over her lovers because she sees them as distant ones. And as the series progresses, new girls are introduced at one at a time, and, well, they all have their own reasons for why they like the guy. Some because they treat him lightly, because the others because for love at first sight, or others because he was kind and protecting of them. And it's all well and good. It's actually quite nice, honestly. So overall, the story, it's a great story. It breaks a few of the tropes that it originally started, that was in harems for the longest time, but it's overall an entertaining series that if you like monsters and all that in a high school setting, yes, there are other series that you could watch, but honestly, I think Rosario+Vampire is one of those rare series that I think people kind of forget. But I'll save that for the ending. Anyway, my opinion. The story is fine. It's simple, but I always say that the simplistic story can actually build a great world and characters. Instead of beginning complicated, start simple, then add the complicated part. But that's just me. Moving on. And as is tradition, as we continue on, I always talk about the characters of the story. So, here we are. We're going to be talking about the characters. I will only be talking about the handful of girls because, honestly, Like, maybe not all of them, but maybe like the first few character girls, because if I did all of them, I'd be here for a very uncomfortable amount of time, even for me. And learning from my past reviews, if I talk about the entire cast, it kind of gets me tired pretty quickly. So I may do a few of the girls that may be relevant in this story, but then again, I might have to do all of them because they're all relevant. Ugh, this is always the tricky part, my friends. So, to begin with the characters, we have Skuniauno, a young boy of basically average, who basically failed his entrance exams until he was basically brought into this world of a school full of monsters. Skune is a very average boy, nothing remarkable, no special skills, no nothing. He's so bland, he makes vanilla ice cream look delicious. But that's at the beginning, and I'm not going to wish you to spoil anything because I think this is something you should read. I definitely think this is something you should read. That as the story progresses, Skune becomes to learn to be more unique in his own way. He starts to try to basically fight his battles. He tries to basically show that he isn't a coward and that he wants to prove the love to his sweetheart that basically is just basically kind of comedic at times. So yes, it's very interesting and very entertaining half of the time to watch him grow and learn. Next, we have the second main character of the series, Mocha Akashiya, a sweet vampire with a bit of a split personality disorder. Because you see, there are two versions of Mocha, which I will be talking now. You have the outer sweet pink-haired Mocha, who's basically as sweet as candy, and she has a little kind personality, a little naive at times, but sweet nonetheless, who basically sees Skune as a snack because she's a vampire, but she doesn't see him as a snack. She just sees him as just like a delicious lunch, okay, as a snack. So basically, Mocha is sweet, kind-hearted, but when Skune removes her Rosario from her chest, basically she has a different personality where she has silver hair. Now that silver hair personality is quite different, for she is cold, methodical, and violent at the points. At the beginning, she's very violent. In fact, little spoilers, as no, I should say didn't want to. She threatened to rip off the girl I'm going to talk about next, wings and tail off, just to teach her a lesson. Oh, is that the... No, wait, no. She was going to kill her to teach her a lesson. Yeah, that's lovely. But yes, honestly, I think these split personalities actually make a nice dichotomy. At the beginning, it kind of makes me think, who's the real one and which one's the one that's actually the sealed one? It kind of puts a little mystery. And I kind of like that. It constantly may think, is the outer one the real one and that the inner one is just her violent, suppressed self? Or is the outer one a fake one and that the inner one is just basically her true self just being suppressed? I didn't know at the time until certain events of the plot, but it was a good way of keeping me on my toes and continuously thinking, and I feel like that's a good characterization of her. And plus, as the series goes on, she gets a little more softer, kinder. As soft as kind as a vampire can get. But be thankful she isn't a vile blood, everyone, because otherwise then I have to hunt her. Anyway, next. Next up, we have the voluptuous and lovely succubus Kuruma. To describe Kuruma is very simple. Kuruma is basically a character who at first just wanted to charm every single person at the school because she was looking for her destined one, until she met Mocha, who basically ruined her plans, and then Skune rescued her and she had a change of heart. Now, she's a simplistic character, but overall the simplicity actually helps her grow, learn, and mature. I find it nice to know that she just basically, after trying so hard, realized that maybe she just needs to be herself and not rely on her powers to trick other people into liking her. So it's a nice characterization. And the fact is that it only happened because Skune, being the kind-hearted person he is, actually saved her from almost being killed by Mocha. So yes, I enjoy her characterization from basically being a selfish person to learning to be herself and not use her powers to trick people, because frankly, it's not really love if you have to use magic to trick them. Next up, we have the selfish but smart witch Ukari. Now, at the beginning, Ukari was a very selfish character who looked down on others because she's a very, very, very smart witch for her age. She's basically a little girl, but she's very, very, very clever. In fact, she's actually the top in her class, which is kind of impressive for such a young girl. But then again, when you're smart, you have certain advantages. But because of that, and being a witch, she was always discriminated and picked on by the other students. But until a certain event that happened that Skune rescued her. Before that, she actually saw Skune as a pest that ruined Mocha. But after, like I said, an event, she actually came to respect and actually love Skune. And as usual, it is always awkward to have the little characters because it's just borderline on you know what, and I don't want to say it. But just On the reference of her character, she's very smart, intelligent, witty, and does get a bit of trouble with the others and causing them to get into trouble, but thankfully she sometimes gets them out, so it isn't too bad. Thank goodness. Now you wonder why I don't have a little sister. So, for the final girl, we have Mizore, who is basically a snow woman or Yukiona, if I must be correct in the pronunciation. And she's the most difficult one because her only defining character, and yes, she does gain more character, is that she is attracted to Skune. Well, if I recall correctly, it's because she likes he likes her because she likes the newspapers, and she sees Mocha as basically a love rival. In the beginning, she tried to kill her until events turned out on why she's like this and so clingy to people is because she basically is loner and wants to have friends. And also the fact that she was, how do I put this gently on YouTube? She was abused by a teacher, and hence why she has such a cleanness to Skune, because she wants protection from him until, that's why. I'm sorry I don't have much to say more, but I feel like of all the girls, she's actually the weakest one in terms of characterization. So, yes, I enjoy her, but she's also the most difficult to talk about because her one defining feature is that she likes Skune and will protect him no matter what, and sees the other girls as a potential rival. I could have just set that up and just ended it now. Ugh. So my overall thoughts on the characters, that they're fine. They really, honestly, with all my whinging with the characters, especially the last one, I really can't find any problems of why not to like them. They all have their personalities, and they do come around as their own characters. Heck, even the characters like Gin, a perverted wolf who basically frames Skune for things he didn't do, basically comes to his own as the series goes on. Sure, he's still a bit of a pervert, but he learns to be much kinder and friendlier towards his clubmates. Yes, he's the cat. He's basically the leader of the newspaper club which they are part of, but I digress. So yeah, I can't really say much about. They're just okay characters that do fine. And I know I say fine a lot, but that's the best way I can articulate it. So yes, they're... Now, we come along to the most important aspect of any manga, the art. And I have to say, Ikeda's art is beautiful. At the beginning, the art is simplistic but soft. It has nice curves to it, and it looks pleasant and soft to the eyes. It looks fantastic. But as the series continues, the art starts to evolve and become more angular and more darker. There's more shades basically into the art style, which gives it a more dark and oppressing tone for a lot of the times. I love the way the panels are structured, very cohesive, and just the way that the expressions on the characters is fantastically done. And yes, the action scenes, when there are very simplistic done, but the simplicity of it makes it easier to follow. And I like that. And Ikeda, honestly, I think Ikeda is definitely up there on top of my favorite manga artist, along with Toriyama-sensei. I honestly enjoy it, and the way, again, it evolves is a nice pleasing from basically going from a simple slice of life in a monster school where the only human in it finds out he's basically to a dark and conspiratorial to undermine the balance and the work that the school is trying to do. Basically trying to promote peace and unity between monsters and humans, and the fact is it does it excellently through the visuals alone. I love the expressions. I love how Mocha's definitely evolves, because I feel like when it was first introduced, when Mocha's first, it looked a little bit, I'm going to be honest, the art, she looked a bit too, I know she looked too angular, but I think when the other soft curves, it doesn't fit well. But I'm glad that as the series continued, the more angular look kind of fits well with her. So yes, I think the art is actually one of the strongest points, and I like it how it evolves as the series continues. Not much more can I say. Anyway, let's wrap this up, shall we, my hunters? So far, my thoughts on the series are positive, borderline on I would recommend you basically watch it. Well, sorry, read it. Sorry, Mr. Reviewing Anime. But yes, I would say go read the manga. I think if you enjoy monsters of any variety, like vampires, werewolves, succubuses, so on and so forth, with a bit of slice of life schooling and mystery plots, and a bit of thriller thrown into there, and some conspiracies, I'd highly recommend this series. It's one of those rare series that I feel like fell under the bus and wasn't treated well, because, minus the fact that I have the mangas with me, I feel like it's not a series that's talked about often, and even though it did came out in 2004, well, almost 20 odd years ago, I still think it's a great series to look back and talk about it, because it is, essence, one of my first ever manga I ever read. And yes, this is nostalgia talking, and I know nostalgia can basically blind you, but reading the series, my assurances were basically assured that the series is still good. It has a few crow's feet, like in the sense that the characters are very one-dimensional. And I know you're gonna say, I know people are gonna say, well, that's typical for harems, but I feel like the harem aspect is kind of the underpoint of the series and more focused on the mystery, the action, and the characters. So yes, it may not be your traditional harem series, but it's still unique enough that I would still highly recommend. Man, I can't believe 100 subscribers. 3 years, my hunters. It took me 3 years to get here. So I'm kind of happy. I'm thankful. I want to just say to all my hunters that have gone along this far, I thank you very much. And if you wish to continue to help me grow, if anybody who is new to this channel, why don't you like and subscribe to this channel? If you want to reach my 200 subscriber review, maybe I'll read you one of my old reviews just because I think some of them do an update. And so, like I said, as I always say, my hunters, like, subscribe, as I said before, follow me on my Twitter. I have my Discord down below if you want to basically, talk with me, because I'm always on my Discord. And I always like to meet new people. And if you follow the rules, yeah, I get along perfectly well. Oh, and if you want to see me grow even more, subscribe to my Patreon. You've got several tiers from usually $1 to up to 100. Well, not dollars, but euros. €1 to 100 euros. Just that little support can give me that little edge that I need to buy better equipment and hopefully one day be a better YouTuber. And as I appreciate it, my hunters, let the good blood guide your way.